Kumla Black Gemara. We're up to Daf Yud Ches Amud Aleph of Chagigah. So we have the basis for Shavuos having an extension of 7 days, and then the last one was Reish Lakish, who decided that he deviated from Lezron Yaakov, used the pasuk Krosim of Tzurchem, which Tzurchem is a verb, but it's not really talking about Shavuos, it's talking about Peah, but because of the juxtaposition, so he wanted to bring a pasuk where it actually talks about Shavuos, Chagigah Daf. The only thing is over there it's a noun, and he tried to turn it into a verb, and Rabbi Yechon said he can't do that, because otherwise how you really deal with Chagigah Asif. But the bottom line is, Rabbi Yechon said you cannot ma'asif on Chol Hamoed, and Shloka didn't counter by saying yes you can, which means everyone agrees you cannot work the Chol Hamoed. Says the Gemara, how do you know you cannot work the Chol Hamoed? Again, this is fascinating. We had all the din of Chol Hamoed in Masechta Moed Katan, and nowhere in Masechta Moed Katan is the Gemara asking, how do you know you're not allowed to work the Chol Hamoed? You go to Chagigah, and we're talking about them, there's something totally different about the Kabbanis and Shavuos. Suddenly, we ask, how do you know Chol Hamoed? This is the brilliance of learning how to have that. Why you have to go through Daf Yomi and go through the whole Shas to get a good overview of everything. Otherwise, you're really shortchanging yourself. So Gary, we're going over some of the Gemara we did yesterday. We'll go through quickly on Yuches Amud Aleph, about 10 lines from the top. So how do you know that Chol Hamoed? The Torah we learned. As Chag HaMatzah Tishma, you should protect Chag HaMatzah Shem for 7 days. What do you mean protective for 7 days? Obviously, it's giving you a lot to do what? Not to work. Limit al Chol Hamoed, Azrim Lochin. I'll work for the entire Chol Hamoed as well. The entire Yom Tov. Give it Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua says, in the Tzaddik, you don't even need a pasuk. It's Pashat logic. Kal v'chemer. The first day Yom Tov, the last day Yom Tov, Shein Kedusha L'fnei Achrein. There's no Yom Tov the day before Yom Tov. There's no Yom Tov the day after Yom Tov. And yet also Basi is Malacha. You know, do Malacha. Chayil Shel Moyed Sheyesh Kedusha L'fnei Achrein. You Chol the sandwich between the first day Yom Tov and last day Yom Tov, between days you're not allowed to, which is Kaddish. Ein Eidin. Surely Shey also Basi is Malacha. So Chol surely you shouldn't be able to do any work. Says Gemara, that's your horayah, because it's sandwiched between 2 other days that are forbidden. Every week, sandwiched between 2 Shabbosim. And yet, you can work in the Sheish Mebreshis. Says the Gemara, what are you comparing? They're not holy days. There's nothing holy about that. Of course, the point of Chol Hamoed is that it's a holy day to the Korban Musaf, and now it's sandwiched between 2 other Yom Tovim, so therefore you shouldn't work. There's a Korban Musaf. Says Gemara, that's what it is. What makes it holy is a Korban Musaf. What about Rosh Chodesh? It has a Korban Musaf. No, you're retracting from what your word is about being sandwiched. Now your word is Chol Hamoed is holy because it has a Musaf. Rosh Chodesh also has a Musaf. Rosh Chodesh Yechiach, sheyesh by Korban Musaf, and yet Mutabas says Malach, you're allowed to work. Even though we learned before that we had a few places that you don't work. We had Megillah where you have an extra aliyah, but it's only that women had a meaning not to work. You don't Isa. What are you talking about? You know why you're allowed to work? She'ain kori mikra kodesh. Even though it has a Korban Musaf, it's not known as mikra kodesh. Taima b'chel shemoy. It's kori mikra kodesh. Chol shemoy not only has Korban Musaf, but it's known as mikra kodesh. Now, last time in the share we said we don't know where it's known, because it's not written in the Torah. The Chol Hamoed is called mikra kodesh. It talks about the first day, the 7th day, and it mentions 7 days before that. So maybe it's as if it's written on Chol Hamoed, but no pasuk clearly calls Chol Hamoed mikra kodesh. But Hoyel the Korah Mikra Kodesh, what Gemara's word is, since Chol Hamoed has in it, it's a Korban Musaf and it's known as Mikra Kodesh, therefore it's only right that you shouldn't do any malacha. Dinush also basis malacha, therefore it's only right you shouldn't do any malacha. So that's where he learns it from. So you have Rabbi Yeshua B'Yenissim, comes along Tanil, another place, so 2 other limud. Says the pasuk, Kamaleches Avodah Loisasa, don't do any form of work. So when we watch Avodah, you shouldn't do it. So it says it. So first day mikra kodesh, don't do any work, and 7 days you should be makif. So we darshan as if the entire 7 days also you shouldn't be doing any work. And limud al chol shemoed also basid malach. Now do any work on Chol Hamoed as well. Divrei Rabbi Zaglili. Rabbi Kiva says, "Einot tzarich." You don't need that juxtaposition. You don't need that. How do you aim it? It says in pasuk, "Eile moyade Hashem mikroi kodesh asher tikra oisem amodim." The following other Yom Tovim. Now, normally you learn Pshat, we're talking about the ordinary Yom Tovim. And that these are called Mikra Kodesh, or holy days. So when by holy days, that you have to rest. What do I have to say that for? It says clearly, it spells out already clearly that Yom Tovim, the beginning and end of Yom Tov, you have to rest. What do I need? What's adding the pasuk Elamad Hashem? But now, because what you're talking about, we're talking about the first day Yom Tov. Hadikvar Nemar, it already says. Shabbos, and regarding the first day, Yom Tov already says Shabbos. It says the word you rest. It says by Sukkot. It says by Yom Rishon Shabbos and by Yom Hashmini Shabbos. So it clearly says that you have to rest on the beginning of Yom Tov, the end of Yom Tov. Im Bishmi, it's actually Im Bishvi. It's also Im Bishmini. It's talking about Sukkot. How do you cry Shabbos? You should rest. Ein Hakosa Medaber must be talking about so what's Mikra Kodesh adding. So when the Gemara before said, when Rabbi Yonason said that by Chol HaMoed, it says Mikra Kodesh must be that he's relying on Rabbi Akiva's word. That this pasuk of Eila Moed Hashem Mikra Kodesh, Rabbi Akiva just concluded, it must be talking about Chol HaMoed. It must be Rabbi Yonason is agreeing with Rabbi Akiva, and that's why he said it says already Mikra Kodesh. But for Rabbi Yonason, Mikra Kodesh alone is insufficient. He also has to add that there's a carbon musaf there. Rabbi Akiva says Mikra Kodesh is enough to tell me that you shouldn't be working. Tanidov, that's another. So we have 4 psukim. Tanidov, another one. Sheiches Yom Tov Matzah. It says the pasuk 6 days eat matzahs. By Yom Hashvi, the 7th day. Atzedes, refrain from work. Hashem lekecha. Now it's all in the same pasuk. 6 is the 7th day, which means all 7 days. Mashvi Otza. So just like a 7th day, you're not supposed to be working. So the total 6 days you shouldn't be working. So then what's the difference between the 6 and the 7? Mashvi Otza b'cham lo do any form of work. Avsheiches Yom Otza lo, you shouldn't do any work. It says on the 7th day, Atzeres Hashviyot. Even though you're not allowed to work the entire Yom Tov and Chol HaMoed, there's a difference between the Isser of working on the last day and all the other days. And what's that? So in other words, the 6 days Chol HaMoed is a bit lighter, and you can do some malachas. And what's the difference? The Torah gave it over to the rabbis. Let me tell you, they decide when Rosh Chodesh is, so they determine when Yom Tov begins, and they not only determine when Chol HaMoed begins, they also determine what you can do, Chol HaMoed, what you can't. And last night, this year, we discussed this long tesis here, which brings a big machlekes. If not working on Chol HaMoed, is that an Isser in the Torah or is that an Isser in the Rabban? Reading this Gemara here, it seems clear it's an Isser in the Torah. You bring all the psukim. And we had it by Cotton a few times. He said, this is only by an Oval, which is the Rabban, and the Chol HaMoed, which is the Raisa, and so on. But tesis has a big problem with that. Just the very fact that the tesis, where do you find in the Torah, and any law in the Torah, if it's difficult, I'll change my mind. By the Rabbanans we have, but by the Evid, if you do it, okay, only by Kotchim, Tesis and Dr. Olive says in Psachim, only by Kotchim we say that there's a difference between with the Evid. That's why you have to do the Torah has to shuttle over Kosel Aktiv. You need to repeat twice the pasuk to make it, that you should, no way, even with the Evid, you shouldn't, you have to make sure you do it. But in all the halach, you don't have it. Yet here suddenly, on Chol HaMoed, if it's a dover of it, you're going to lose money, okay, go work. Where did that come from? He says clearly it's the Rabban, and so on and so forth, other ayahs. So a big machlekes. And some want to say that whether you wear tefillin Chol HaMoed or not is predicated on the machlekes. If the Isser of Malacha and Chol HaMoed is Mahatayda, then it's no different than Yom Tov, and that's the sign of our bond with Hashem. Then you don't wear tefillin. But if the Isser of Chol HaMoed is Lamed Rabbanan, then that bond Mahatayda, you're allowed to work. So where's your ice? You need to wear tefillin. That's what some want to say. Let's continue Gemara. We also learned in the Mishnah that if we have Yom Tov on Shabbos and Yom Tov, the compensation day is Sunday, we don't want the Tzedukim to misconstrue. Interesting, the Mishnah doesn't want to call them Tzedukim here. We don't want them to misconstrue our activity on Sunday as if we declaring it Yom Tov. So we don't want to look at Yom Tov, the Kohen didn't wear Shabbos clothes, or he didn't wear his 8 begodim to do Hazaveda. And we say, you know what, make eulogies as if it isn't Yom Tov. Make fast as if it isn't Yom Tov. And Muslims say, if the Yom Tov is any other day, because you have 7 days or total, if it's any other day, then you have to treat it like Yom Tov. You shouldn't fast, you shouldn't make eulogies. But if it's on Sunday, go ahead. And we change the rules so that no one should misconstrue that our behavior on Sunday, we agree with the Tzdukim that it's Shavuos. Because they say Memachar as a Shabbos means literally Sunday. Says the Gemara, so that's what the Gemara can say now. Mais is a story. The mess, that's why the Mishnah says the Motorim Hesper V'Tainis on Sunday you're allowed to do Hesper V'Tainis. We don't want in any way give any credence to those who say Atzeres Achar Shabbos. That Shavuos always falls out on Sunday. Says the Gemara, Mais V'Meis Alechse Belud. Alechse, a great man, died in Lud. V'Nichlas Ukay Yisrael, so that everyone went in, came in from far and abroad to go ahead and eulogize him. Lo Tarfon just allowed them because of Shavuos. Now, Yom Tov Sagdata have to be sure. Even Yom Tov Mikos, where they come from and how do you make a husband? Ella aim up if they Yom Tavayach. Must have been a weekday, but it was Yom Tavayach, and he said Yom Tavayach no hespedim. No, it contradicts our Mishnah. Like Kasha, can be Yom Tov Shecholi is Acher Shabbos. If Yom Tov falls out after Shabbos, so therefore Yom Tavayach is another weekday. Then you have to treat it like Yom Tov. Whatever day you bring the carbon, you have to treat it like Yom Tov. Don't do it. Don't make us pay. Or can be Yom Tov Shecholi b'Shabbat. But I'm talking about a specific case where the day where Yom Tov fell on Shabbos. So the first day that you can bring kabbanis Yom Tov is on Sunday, and then we have to make sure that we should not be considered looked at that we're agreeing with its dukim that it's Yom Tov today. So therefore, make us pay him fast if you want, and so on. Okay, Mishnah. Now, from here to the end of Masechet Chagigah, we're going to talk about Tumah V'Tara, and Rashi says later on the Gemara, the reason why we do it is at the end we talk about Yom Tov, that everyone is Torah, even on Amoritz is considered Torah and Yom Tov, so let's learn these laws. A quick summary about laws of Tumah. So it works like in a strata grades. It works in grades of Tumah. We have the strata. Avi Avaisa Tumah, that's a corpse. Avi Avaisa Tumah is a corpse. Then you have the next level, which is Avhatuma. Avhatuma includes a sheretz, includes a zav, a male zav, a zav, a nida. These are all Avhatuma. Then you have the next level is called a Rishon Latuma. The next level is a Shein Latuma. And in Chulin, that's where it ends. So this is what it works. If whatever you touch, you're always a grade lower. You're always a step lower. Except Tumas Midris, which is if you're stepping on, you're putting your whole weight on it. Let's say if a Zava sits on 10 mattresses, all the 10 mattresses take on her identity and they all become tummy, exactly like her. That's called Tumas Midris, standing on, treading on. Now, so the power is an Avatuma is Metame, anything, a person, Kalim. But once it's a Rishon Latuma, if something becomes, if a person touched an Avatuma, he becomes Rishon Latuma, you can't be a Rishon Latuma cannot be Metame another person. A Rishon Latuma cannot be Metame Kalim. All a Rishon Latuma can do is Metame Eichlin Mashkin, food and drink. The Rabbanan made a gzeir, we had in the beginning of Sach, in the first page there in the end, that we glazed that all mashkin, that all liquids become a Rishon Latuma. Even if they touch a Rishon Latuma, they become a Rishon Latuma. Okay, so Rishon Latuma can make a Shein Latuma by Chulin, that's the end of the line. So we call that puzzle. A Sheini Latuma is no longer tummy, it is puzzle. But when it comes to Truma, we are stricter. So a Sheini Latuma, if a Truma comes in contact with a Sheini Latuma, food or drink, it becomes a Shlishi Latuma. But that's the end of its line, so that's puzzle. But if Kachim touched Shlishi of Truma, let's say, it becomes a Revi. And that's the end of its line. Then another thing we learned is, and if you become Tameh, you have to go to mikveh. Immerse yourself entirely, but there's an exception. Sometimes all you have to do is immerse your hands, and that is the Rashi brings it 3 different cases that Chacham said, you know what, only your hands are tummy. One is a general rule you had in Shabbos, Yud Ches David 18 Xeris they made from Shammai, which was accepted, and that is Yodayim Shnias. Your hands are automatically considered Shnias. It's always tummy. You touch parts that you should be touching. Your hands are always tummy. You have to wash your hands. Then you have if you touch a Sefer Torah. If you touch a Sefer, or not only Sefer Torah, all Sfarim, the Chavdal Sfarim, your hands become tummy, but only your hands, limited hands. And so these are examples, but only your hands become tummy. And or if you touch a Shein Latuma, your hands become tummy. These are only the Rabbanan. So all you have to do is immerse your hands or wash your hands. That's all you have to do. Now, if we have a rule that your daim are considered shniyas, what do you need the other 2 rules touching a Sefer? Even if you don't touch a Sefer, your hands are always tummy. Because it's talking about a case, for example, you washed your hands and you were minding it, and then you touch a Sefer. So as far as your hands being tummy, you weren't Masiyach Das, you didn't neglect it, so therefore your hands are still tired. But because you touch a Sefer, your hands became tummy. Okay. We're also going to learn about whether you have to have kavanah when you go to the mikveh, you have to have kavanah, you're becoming Torah or not. And we're going to make a distinction between chulin, where kavanah is not that important, regarding all other things. So let's learn our Mishnah. Noitlil yodayim, you wash your hands, lechulin for chulin, ulamaiser. All you need for washing hands is a keli that has a netilas yadayim. Netila means it's the name of a keli in Aramaic, and it's the size of a revis. So you wash your hands for chulin, for meiser, the truma. You wash your hands for truma. You wash your hands for a kodesh. you wash your hands for kodesh. I'm sorry, for chulin, ma'aser, truma, you wash your hands. But kodesh, when it comes to kodesh, for example, you want to eat kachim, you want to eat a korban shlomim, you want to eat a korban chatas. Who is that? From obviously the kohenim. That you have to be. So shlomim is for anybody, or chatas noshim for the kohenim, is matbilin. You can no longer just wash your hands. You have to immerse your hand in a mikveh that is 40 sa. And even though it's only midrabanan, we're talking about just stam, your daim ashni is saying, still. We're not talking about your tummy the rice, because then your entire body is tummy. Still, by kachim, you have to. We're more chamer, we're more machmer. You have to immerse your hands in a mikveh. If your hands became tummy properly, then nitma gufa, your entire body becomes tummy. Your entire body becomes tummy. So when we say that you have to wash your hands, the third case of washing hands is if you touch a rishul or tumah, you have to wash your hands. And the same thing, I missed the word, sorry. When it comes to mei chatas, this is the water of chatas that you're going to sprinkle from the parah aduma. You're going to sprinkle on people around kelim to retire them. There's even more chamer that if your hands became tummy, if your hands became tummy, one of these three things, you touch a sefer, you touch the rishon, or just generally, or any tumah of the rabbanon, nitma gufa, your entire body becomes tummy, and you need to immerse your body. So, or even kachim, if your hands touch a sefer, all you have to do is wash, is immerse your hands. Okay, machmer, you have to go to mikveh, but it's only for your hands, not the rest of your body. But when it comes to mei chatas, which the whole idea of mei chatas is to purify others, it itself has to be on the highest level of purity. So if you wanted to get involved in it, and your hands become tummy, you have to table your entire body. Okay, it says more further. Let's say you went to the mikveh and you had a mind that I'm tabling myself for chulin. So this is a new series of chumras. Is chulin, and you had a mind for chulin also la ma'aser. If you want to eat ma'aser sheni that you take into your shlaim, that tefillah is not good enough. You have to now go a higher level of tefillah. You have to have a mind ma'aser. Tabel la ma'aser. So let's say you went to the mikveh and had a mind that I want to be pure for ma'aser. And you had a mind ma'aser also truma. Then it's not good enough when it comes to you want to eat truma. You got to go to the mikveh again and have a mind. You're going to the mikveh to eat truma. Tabel la truma. You went to the mikveh for truma. And you had a mind truma, also the kodesh. It's not good enough for kodesh, even though you got the tefillah for the mikveh and everything else for truma, but it's not good enough for kachim. You got to go to mikveh again. Toval the kodesh, mind, also the chatas. It won't help you for the mei chatas that we just said, because that's one level even higher than kachim. So you went to kodesh, and huchzik means you actually had in mind. Toval the chomer mutar lekal. This is the rule. If you table for something stricter, it's good enough for something more lenient. So you table for kachim, you can eat ma'aser sheni. But if you had in mind something lower, it doesn't help for something higher. Let's say you went to mikveh, you had nothing in mind. Is ki'ilu like tava. It does, as if you didn't go to mikveh at all. It doesn't count. Sounds from the Mishnah that you must have kavanah when you go to the mikveh. And we'll discuss that in the Gemara. Big de Amaretz, the close of Amaretz, is midrash leprushin. People who decided that prushin are people who are more frum or more machmer. They decided that all the food that they're going to eat al taras hakodesh. They might have trum in the house to give to a kohen, so they want to make sure that everything in the house is pure, so they eat it al taras hakodesh. So the clothes of Amaretz are considered midrash, are considered tamei, and not just tamei. It's considered an avatumah. I told you before that an avatumah sits on 10 mattresses like a zova and a zova. The all become tummy. You're stepping on, you put your whole weight on it, it becomes your level of tumah. So as far as prushin is concerned, even though you don't know if the amaretz is tummy or not, we treat it as if it's tummy in that order, and you have to then go to the mikveh. And if a person touches it, you become tamei, because an avatumah is metamei a person. We treat the clothes of an amaretz like midrash, tumas midrash, which means it takes on the same level of tumah as the amaretz, as which we say it might be an avatumah, and therefore the clothes of an avatumah, if you touch it, the prushin, they are considered additional tumah. Big day prushin. Now these prushin, they're so machmer, yet their clothes are midras la'oichet truma. As far as oichet truma are concerned, for kohenim, for example, it's considered tummy. They have to go. They touch it. They have to go to mikveh, and this is all midrabanan. And we're just saying that the Shmir of Perushin is not good enough when it comes to the level of Truma. And the Shmir of Truma is not good enough if you the level of Kachin. And what do we worry about? Rashi explains it that we're worried that maybe the wife was a nida sat in it, so therefore the clothes. Why do the clothes become tum of the highest order? Because we're saying that maybe they didn't guard it well enough, and the wife, while she was a nida, sat on these clothes, and she's a nida, she's an avatuma. So the clothes take on the chumra of avatuma. Big deal in the middle of the middle of Chattas. Yes, the Murray give highlights this point. Yes, when he has a Chassis, Yes, when was a Chassis of Kuna, and Bahoisam at Pachte Midas Lakaidish. He was such a frum person, and yet, and he was a Yes, when he has learned before, he was the top person in his generation. Yet, Bahoisam Pachte Midas Lakaidish. His towel was, if somebody wanted to touch him and they touched his towel, it's like they touched an Abatuma and they have to go to mikveh. Because he was worried about his level of truma. He wasn't. It's not good enough when it comes to kachim. Yochanan ben Gudgada, he was a Levi. He was so from his entire life, he only ate chulin as if it was taras hakodesh, and yet his towel was considered. So he had taras hakodesh, which means he treated the level of kachim. That's how he was so machmer. Yet we said before that mechatas is even stricter than kachim, and therefore if somebody wants to be involved in mechatas and you touch the towel of Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgada, you have to go to mikvah as if you became you touch an abatum. Says the Gemara. So our Mishnah says that you have to wash your hands for chulin and for ma'aser sheni. See, what are we talking about? Chulin and ma'aser sheni. Meat boy does not. You have to wash it. If you touch a sefer meals, you have to wash your hands for chulin and ma'aser sheni. But I mean, I'll ask you a question. It says in the Braisa, truma v'habikuri. It says in the Mishnah, sorry, habikuri, truma and bikuri. Chayovin alein truma and bikurim. If you deliberately go ahead and eat truma, you're a Yisrael, or you deliberately go ahead and eat truma, you're not a kohen. Bikurim chayovin alein misa. You chay missing the shemayim. The chodesh, if you did it by mistake, you have to pay a penalty. Not only reimburse the kohen, but you have to pay a penalty of a fifth, which is 25%. The way they calculate it, the osul lezorim, plus there's a prohibition for a Yisrael to eat it either bikurim or truma. You're allowed. The Heinichte coin plus they're assets of the coin. You can use it to be make Kaddish a woman with, and you can buy things with it and trade it on the market. But normally when trade falls into kosher, if it's bottled b'shishim, 60 times is enough. When it comes to truma, you need 101 in total. There's 100 times of chulin versus the truma. You have to wash your hands. You have to wash your hands. Because remember by truma we go to a shlishi. Your hands are considered shniyas, are always considered like second, sheni, and therefore you have to wash your hands if you want to eat truma. The head of shemesh plus, even if you went to the mikveh, you have to wait for the first mission in brachas. You have to wait until sunset. These rules apply to bikurim and truma. Masha ain't came the ma'aser, but when it comes to ma'aser sheni, there's no death over there. There's no penalty. There's no isa to the zarim, because in fact you take the ma'aser sheni with your shleim and you're the one who read it. That's what ma'aser sheni is all about. And it's only time you pay the extra 50 is if you want to swap the fruits or the whatever it is you want to take with your shleim to money, because it's too difficult to bring it all to your shleim. That's it. There's no penalty or anything else. And you don't have to wash your hands. Why? Because your hands are only a sheni. Ma'aser sheni doesn't go to a shlishi, and therefore sheni doesn't go any further. Your sheni is only puzzle. It doesn't go any further, and there's no shlishi. And therefore you don't have to wait till sunset, because as soon as you go out of the mikveh, let's say you're tummy from other reasons, then you go out of the mikveh, you can go ahead and eat ma'aser sheni straight away. Says the Gemara, so it's clearly here that ma'aser sheni, you don't have to wash your hands. If you don't have to wash your hands because your hands are a sheni, it doesn't go any further, and ma'aser sheni doesn't go any further, so sure you don't have to wash it as a chulin. What's the Shatna Mishnah? Kashya ma'aser ma'aser, kashya chulin chulin. It's a question from ma'aser ma'aser, question from chulin chulin. Says the Gemara, Bishleim ma'aser ma'aser, I can tell you there's an argument tonight. So this Mishnah Bikurim argues on Mishnah Chagigah. Like Kasha, who are these two tonight? Hara meir, hara rabbanim. There's a difference between a meir and rabbanim. Who is this Rameir? Who is Rabban? Now we learn. Kol hatowen bias mayim midivri seifri. Anything which is not toida, you are toid. And the Chachamim said that you are tomei, like we just said before. He touched the sefer and all that. Or another thing we learned in Gemara there in Shabbos, if you ate food that's tumas rishon. We learned that tumas rishon cannot make a person tummy. But as far as truma is concerned, the chacham machmi. You know what? You ate a rishon l'tumah. You ate a shein l'tumah. You cannot eat truma until you go to the mikveh. So that's called klaton bias mine. Anyone that has to go to mikveh, b'derabban, like the case I just said, you ate a rishon, you ate a sheni. So as far as truma is concerned, the rabbanon said go to mikveh. Mitame yes hakodesh. So therefore, what are you? You're also a tumah v'sheni. If you tumah sheni and you touch kachim, obviously it's mitame. Why? Because you make it a kachim the shlishi, and that kachim can make another kachim a revi. So therefore, if there's more steps further down the line, it's called tumah. It's capacity to generate tumah beyond itself. Tumah, as far as tumah is concerned, is the end of the line. So if you're a sheni, you ate that tradition, you become a sheni, then you touch tumah, the tumah becomes tumah, but that's the end of the line. It becomes puzzle. It cannot generate any tumah beyond itself, but it itself is puzzle. Because since you're only a sheni, then you're allowed to eat ma'aser sheni because there's nothing beyond my sheni by ma'aser sheni. So it may clearly holds there's no washing for chul and ma'aser sheni because it can't go any further. They say we disagree with ma'aser. Chulin we agree, but by ma'aser we disagree. We hold that ma'aser you cannot. You have to also go to the mikveh. So we have a machlekes Chachamim. Our Mishnah here said that you have to wash your hands from ma'aser is the Chachamim. That Mishnah Bikurim said you don't have to wash your hands from ma'aser sheni is Rameir. Fine. So you've explained away ma'aser el chulin kasha, but we still have a contradiction of chulin. Our Mishnah said you have to wash your hands for chulin, and then Bikurim said you don't have to, and everyone agrees that chulin doesn't go any further. So we're like kasha. Even the Chacham, they're only arguing by ma'aser, they're not arguing by chulin. Everyone agrees by chulin. You don't. If you're a sheni, it doesn't go any further. You don't have to wash your hands. Like kasha. Kan ba'achila kan benegia. The difference. And our Mishnah is talking about eating. If you want to eat chulin, you want to eat ma'aser, then you have to wash your hands. That Mishnah Bikurim that says that you don't have to wash your hands for chulin. The ma'aser, if you want to touch it. Truma, you want to touch, you have to wash your hands. Or you have to go to mikveh. Same thing applies to kachim for sure. But if you want to touch chulin, touch ma'aser sheni, you don't have to go to mikveh. You don't have to wash your hands if you're a sheni already. But if you want to eat it, with more machmir you have to. So what are we talking about? Maskas Yebarashi ad Kalei Plig Rabban. When do the Rabban argue Rameir? They don't even talk about Chulin. Chulin, they agree with Rameir that you don't have to wash your hands. So who is our Mishnah that says you do have to? And furthermore, and even they argue on Ma'aser, they're only arguing regarding eating. Ad Kalei Plig Rabban Rameir Elabachilat. The Ma'aser only arguing about eating. How do I know they're arguing about eating? Because they're using the words Chachamim Oisim. What do you mean? Oisim sounds like he says mutter and oisim. What do you mean mutter? It should have said that if you touch it, it's not tummy. By mutter it means you're allowed to go ahead and eat it. And oisim means no, you're not allowed to go ahead and eat it. So they're arguing about achila de ma'aser, and yet in ma'aser itself, sorry, abeligia de ma'aser, touching ma'aser, uba achila de chulin pligi. But it seems by chulin they're not touching it at all, which means by chulin, even if you're eating chulin, you don't have to wash your hands. So what's our Mishnah saying? You're washing your hands for chulin, and you said it's talking about eating. When it comes to chulin, there is no difference eating or touching. You don't have to wash your hands. You're mostly right. They're both talking about eating. You wonder why our Mishnah says you have to wash your hands for chulin and bekurim they don't. But like kasha, kan ba'achila de nama. Here we're talking about eating bread, and kan ba'achila de pele. And there we're talking about eating fruits. This is the basis of why we wash for bread. It says over here that when it comes to eating bread, even though you're only a sheni, you're dying, you have to wash. Why? Because we want kohenim to get in the habit, since most truma is bread, and we want to make sure that this is two reasons. One reason is slach truma. We want to make sure the kohenim are always conditioned to wash before they eat truma. So we decide, you know what? The only way to do that is that everybody has to wash for bread. So the only reason why we wash for bread, according to this reason, is to ensure that the kohenim do the right thing, which is an amazing thing. Usually the minority follow the majority. Here you have a case where the majority follow minority. We want to make sure that the kohenim behave when it comes to truma. So you know what? True kohenim are definitely the minority of Klal Yisrael. We want every single year to wash their hands for bread, to in order the kohen do the right thing. So it's a pretty extraordinary thing. Other reason is to make sure for cleanliness and so on, or for kedusha. But this is the reason here. The Gemara says Mashenkin, if you're eating paytas, you don't have to wash your hands. Yeah. Except truma, you always have to wash your hands, even just touching it, because it makes a tummy or puzzle. Says more further. The Amram Nachman said, so how come by Peder you don't have to wash your hands as well? Because Amram Nachman said, if somebody wants to say he's so frum that he's going to wash his hands for Peders, he is considered arrogant and full of hubris. Obviously, it's not talking about if Peders became wet, because that's the whole machlekes of Tibul and Mashka. Tell them what we learned. If somebody washes his hands, it's skaven yada. If you had in mind when you wash your hands to become tired, fine. Or the loin is skaven yada. If you had no kavana, in other words, it sounds from here, you have to have kavana. When you want to make your hands tired, you have to have kavana. The same thing. If you're immersing your hand, the same thing. This skaven yada. If you had kavana that you were doing it to become tired, your hands become tired. Loin is skaven, then yada. If you didn't have kavana, your hands are tummy. Says the Gemara about Tanya, but didn't we learn elsewhere in a brayse bein niskaven, bein loin niskaven? Even if you had no kavana, yadav taidus. Here you tell me that you have to have kavana in order to when you immerse your hands in order to become tired. And there we learned that you don't have that kavana. Nachman said, "Lei kasha, kan lechulin, kan lemaisa." Nachman said it's not a kasha. Here we're talking about chulin, and here we are talking about maisa. That what? When it comes to chulin, you don't have to have kavanah. But when it comes to maisa, whether you're washing your hands with a keli or whether you're immersing it in the mikveh 40 saw, for maisa where more machma, you have to have kavanah. Surely truma and gotcha. Says the Gemara, "We're not taming the chulin boy kavanah." How do you talk to know that chulin is kavanah? If you need kavanah for everything else, how do you know for chulin? You put your hands in the mikveh by mistake, you're ready to if it's only tamim that are bottom. Now we learn gala wave shenitlish. If a wave, let's say, you separated from the ocean, uboy aboyim saw this large wave has 40 saw, v'nofal ala adam ala kelim, and it landed on you, or the entire 40 saw landed on kelim tahidi new atay. So it's comparing a person to kelim. Now the kelim, they have a clue that they're becoming tired. No. So Adam as well. If the wave just happened to fall on you, you become automatically tired, even though you had no kavanah. Ketani Adam do me to Kalim. We're comparing a person to Kalim. Ma Kalim d'lei mechavna no kavanah. Af Adam d'lei mechavna. Person no kavanah. Says Gemara, Mamai, how do you know? Dilma, who told you that you had no kavanah? Maybe he's talking about Dilma b'yoshev mitzapeh. Maybe you sat down, you put all your Kalim in front of the ocean, in front of the beach, on the beach, and you are waiting for that wave to come. So you're having kavanah. Maybe it's one case where you're waiting. When will that wave come? And now we're comparing Adam to Kalim. The Kalim do the Ma Adam Davar Kavanah. Kalim do Chamlu forget. And you need kavanah both. So, but you do need kavanah. How do you know you don't need kavanah? The Chitema, if you're going to tell me, be Yoshev Mitzapeh Mile Memory, you tell me, then what's the point of this mission? If you're sitting there and you want and you're waiting for the wave to come, of course it's and you have 40 on the wave. I need a mission to tell you that it's tired. Of course it's tired. Isn't the chiddush that you don't need kavanah? Said no. There's a chiddush even if you need kavanah and you had kavanah. There's a chiddush involved in a way. But what is that? Because Savgam thought the leagues are let's worry. Dilma osi lemitbel bechadlis shamim. What happens next time he is going to go to mikveh? If a wave is good enough, let's make a gzera next time if it's a downpour and the mountain is on a very big slope and there's 40 saw running down the mountain. And if you tave yourself in that water running down the mountain, you might think that's a good enough mikveh because you have 40 saw moving. A wave is flying, is coming across, detached from the ocean, and it's good enough. What's the difference if it's flowing down the mountain? But the truth of the matter is, that's called katafris when it's flowing down the mountain, and it's not. It's very steep, and it's not a good mikveh because we say that first two reasons. Either someone is trying to say it's not ashboiden, by a mikveh it has to be settled in one place, and it's not in one place, and also because all the drops of water are not considered like one unit. It's just a bunch of drops of water that the overall the aggregate is 40 saw, but we don't look at it as one unit of 40 saw, and that's why it's no good. So we would have thought, let's make a gzera wave the same thing. Or inami or Russian utter kipping. Let's say the crest of the wave, which is where falls on you, is all right. What happens if you go in the kipping? In the kipping is with the curve of the wave, not on the crest, not on the front, the front of the wave. But if you might next time take your kalim, throw it up in the air into the curve of the kalim and the wave, and it goes into the water, and that is no good. I will see in a minute why not. So therefore, maybe we should be geyser the crest of the wave up to the curve. That's a chiddush. So therefore, we have no raya from here, because really you need kavanah, and the chiddush is that a wave is good enough. We're not you just said it for a fact that you cannot throwing the kalim up into the curve of the wave. How do you know you can't? Because the Tanya we learned, the Russian knows you're standing there on the ground, and the Russian that falls on you on the ground is good enough. But the ain mad bilim keeping, but you cannot throw it up in the air into the curve. And why not? Because that's in the luft, that's in the space, and the mikveh has to be grounded, and it has to be a mikveh mayim, which is a pool of water. And the way when it comes landing on you, you're on the ground. So therefore, it's as if it's on the ground, but not if it's in the air. So the question goes back: how do you know that you don't need kavanah when you go to the mikveh? Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. We'll bring more ayahs whether you need kavanah when you go to mikveh by chulin, and the mice, as we said, you don't need.